Hello, and welcome back to Alice Talks Football, and welcome back to a live Manchester United transfer news update show and preview ahead of the Fenerbahce game tonight. We've got a little bit of news on Amrabat, as someone has put in here down below. He drops the truth about why he did not stay at United, and I have to say one thing. They should have told Amrabat right from the get-go, you're not staying. They led him on. They strung him on a bit. They were waiting to see if we got Agate. They waited until the end of the window before they told Amrabat and let him go to Fenerbahce. I didn't like the way that Amrabat was treated in the summer, but we'll talk about that in more detail. Mason Mount, Ineos could be ready to just basically say, you know what, you're injured all the time. Gear out. Eriksen's hinting at his exit. It's expected that Eriksen's going to leave. Even though he's sort of got a bit more importance and found some decent form, it's expected that he will go regardless. Antony, he's been given the green light to leave. We know all of that already. There's some updates on potential exits as well. And then we just got news on like Marcus Rashford, a lot of interest in him. Harry Yamas to get a chance. A couple of youngsters involved tonight. A little bit of news ahead of the Fenerbahce match. Some comments by Mourinho. Some comments by Amrabat. We're going to get into all of the news and have a little bit of discussion ahead of tonight's match. So guys, please do go ahead and hit that like button if vote's gone, if you have not already. And of course, subscribe down below if you're new. Let me know if the quality's coming out all right. Obviously, I'm in this sort of booth at the moment, so sometimes it can muffle it as well. Someone said Alice again bashing because the camera isn't working. I think it's working, but my camera's been doing me over a bit. It's been freezing up, which makes me think it's my software, not my camera, because I just got a new one. Anyway, let's dive into the first bit of news coming out from Amrabat. And I don't know why, but my throat is just like today. Amrabat said this: I have a special relationship with Ten Hag. He wanted to keep me this summer, so I wish him the best, but not for Thursday. I hope they lose. The reason for my departure, the only thing I want to say is you have to ask Mr. Wilcox, was said by Amrabat. And basically, I mean, we kind of knew this. Ten Hag wanted Amrabat. Ten Hag wanted Amrabat to stay, come in. He thought Amrabat could be of use. Ineos were like, nah. Right, that is the truth of the matter. And that might sound weird because we brought Amrabat in last year. Ten Hag played him out of position, then didn't play him for a bit, and then finally played him with about 8 games to go. And when he finally played Amrabat, he had about 6-7 good games in a row. So it's really difficult, the Amrabat situation, because I can actually understand why Ineos didn't want to, pay the money to bring him to United. But I also felt that we only really saw him at the end. If only he could have got 10 more games and done 10 more games like that, then it would have been enough to maybe justify it. Like, the way I see it with Amrabat is, I think we needed 2 midfield signings. I think we needed Agate, and I think we needed someone else for depth. And Amrabat could have been a good second option for depth. But if someone said you could get Amrabat, or you could have got Matt Sweet or you could have got Amadou Onana, I would have said Matt Sweet for Amadou Onana on top of Agate. I would have said Yusuf Afan on top of Amrabat. But I think when Amrabat was reportedly going to be available for about 11 million, I was open to that. I do understand Ineos not wanting to do that. He came, wasn't the best, wasn't super impressive. They don't want to do short-term solutions. I think it is more of a short-term solution for depth. But I just think having someone like Amrabat on the bench, when we've only got 3 midfielders in our whole squad for tonight's game, we've got Mount. No, we haven't got Mount. We've got Eriksen, we've got Agate, we've got Casemiro. Eriksen, Agate, Casemiro, the only midfielders listed in the squad because Mount is injured, Bruno Fernandes is suspended, and I think Collier might be injured. I like Collier, but you'd probably rather just have Amrabat there on the bench for extra security, if I'm going to be totally honest. Like, I like Agate. Hopefully we see Agate more. Hopefully we see him getting the minutes. But to be fair, I probably would have kept Amrabat on a little bit longer. David said if we had kept Amrabat, he'd be playing left back. To be fair, not in the middle. And to be fair, we didn't like Amrabat at left back. He wasn't a left back for me. Agate already showing how good he is. We've not seen loads of Agate, but I was impressed with his little cameo and his obviously performance for Uruguay. I think there's a lot more to see of Manuel Agate, so hopefully we do see that soon. But I will say, I think I can understand Ineos not keeping Amrabat because it took Amrabat the final 7 games of the season to be good, and he was really good in that FA Cup final, and he was really good in the run of games that he got. And to be fair to Amrabat, that was Ten Hag not playing him in the right position, not playing him. But I don't think he did enough over a year to justify buying him. But I also think because Agate is the only midfielder we brought in, not bringing Amrabat back was a mistake. I think just for depth, Amrabat and Agate would have made sense. If we just got Amrabat in and we didn't get Agate, and I'd be saying, come on, we need to spend money on an actual new midfielder. But I think for depth, because we're really thin there, I think we probably could have brought Amrabat in or gone for another loan or something more short term. But I'm not going to slander Ineos for that because, again, he wasn't. We're not going to pretend that Amrabat was amazing. He had a good run towards the end. It was very short term. There was inconsistencies there, which I think was more down to Ten Hag. But I do think he could be doing a job, and I do think there's a good player in Amrabat, and I would have personally liked him. I don't know the media addressing issues of Ten Hag's hatred against some of the players and playing them when they were doomed to fail. I don't think Ten Hag hates any of the players and is playing them when they're doomed to fail. But why is it lagging? But I think, if I was going to be totally honest, I think that Ten Hag sets up the system to make certain players' jobs particularly hard. And when those certain players have a bad game, he drops them. But when certain other players have a bad game, he doesn't. And I think, but I don't think Ten Hag hates any of the players and is deliberately setting them up to fail. I just think that Ten Hag is misprofiling players and giving, when Martinez and De Ligt conceded 3 goals to Porto, they were bad. But the system and the way we set up with such an open midfield made Martinez and De Ligt's job so hard. The attack, Xerxes hasn't been at his best. We can see a little bit of Xerxes' quality in those games against Crystal Palace. We saw Xerxes' quality and how we looked better when he was on the pitch and how we got worse when he came off. But Xerxes not being profiled right, and he's been asked to do the role that Sebastian Haller was asked to do. And Xerxes is a very different profile to Sebastian Haller. And now he's dropped for Højlund, and a lot of people are turning on Xerxes. And I think, for me, I wouldn't say Ten Hag hates players and wants any of his players to look bad. But I think there's a couple of players that haven't been at their best because I think Ten Hag's misprofiling them. And then he drops them because they're not at their best. That's my opinion on it as well. Was Amrabat on high wages? I don't think he was. I think Amrabat was one of the lowest earners. If Amrabat was on was one of our lowest earners as well, I'm shocked that we didn't. I feel like he was on 60 grand a week, which is crazy money, but nothing compared to 90% of the squad. I think he was one of the lower earners. If anyone knows what Amrabat was actually on in comparison to the rest of the squad, do let me know down below as well. Amrabat playing left back would be a nightmare, yeah, but he would be better than Lindelof. The problem with Amrabat is he came in, he got injured, he got a bit of games here and there, but he got injured, he wasn't able to build back fitness, he didn't get a pre-season. He then got jumped in at left back against teams like Manchester City, which is just asking for him to have trouble. When we actually gave him a run in the DM role next to Kobbie Mainoo, he looked really good. He actually did look really, really good. People are saying not lagging. Am I not? I don't know if it's lagging, but I feel like my camera is freezing up a little bit. Maybe that's just me. But yeah, I wouldn't want Amrabat left back as well. Someone says I think that's not fair to say. We were terrible last season, so it's terrible for any player to be a difference maker. It's terrible for any player to be a difference maker, even if that's Amrabat. I don't know what you mean by that, but are you trying to say, yeah, Amrabat didn't always have the best games last season, but everyone else was crap, and that wasn't because of Amrabat. That was because of the system that I think everyone was struggling, which I think would be a fair point. I think there's a lot of players at United that I don't think have performed anywhere near as good as they could be performing. And I think a lot of it is to just do with the environment at United, where I do think the system and the structure is making it harder for certain players to perform and reach certain levels. I think, we haven't seen the best of Kobbie Mainoo yet. We haven't seen the best of Agate. We haven't seen the best of Xerxes. I think they're really good players. And I think we've got to adjust the system to utilise their profiles and make it work to get the best out of them. And I think because the team is bad, we're not scoring goals. I think Rashford's a great player. I think Ahmed's a great player. I think Garnacho's got really good potential. I think Højlund's a good player. I think Xerxes is a good player. But we're scoring the least goals in the Premier League. And I don't think it's because of individuals. Before the game at the weekend, we were ranked 20th for goals scored in the league. I don't think it was because of the individuals. I think it was because of the setup not getting the best out of the individuals. And I can always say, there's Man United players that might look meh United, but they'll go to other clubs and look good. And I think, for me, the one biggest criticism I have of Ten Hag is he's got to get the best out of the players. I don't think sacking Ten Hag and bringing in a new manager is going to miraculously make us good and look unbelievable again, like some people think. But I'm also well aware of there is a squad there, and Ten Hag's job is to get the best out of that squad. And I do think he's misprofiling players and could be doing a much better job to get the best out of that as well. I'm pretty sure the reason behind Walcott's vetoing Amrabat's because he's 28. I think 28 didn't really start the best, but he was on reasonable wages. I think Amrabat's someone you'd want on a 2-year deal on reasonable wages. For me, if we could have signed Amrabat for 11 million quid got him on a 2-year deal on reasonable wages just for depth, because I like Collier, but he's so young, and I think he's injured. I think that would have probably been ideal. But let's get into some more news. Let's get into some more stories going about. So, what's been said on Eriksen as he's dropped some hints about his future? He said on his Manchester United future, "It's not really up to me when my contract runs out, it's up to the club. When the club comes in, if the offer is there, I will definitely take it seriously." Now, Eriksen has been having a good season at United so far. We're very early into the season. His contract's set to expire. United don't have much interest in renewing his contract because he's on very high wages and he's in his 30s. Even if he has a good season, I think we have to let Eriksen walk for free. Just because we've got to think of the long-term project, we've got to think of the limitations he brings off the ball. We just can't be having a player with those many limitations. I think he probably has to go. But I think he can go with his head held high, which I think is a good thing. I think sometimes, even if a player's looking good, like Eriksen, instead of thinking Eriksen re-envisionment, let's keep him for another year because he's looking good, why not just let him go on a high? Sometimes you have to realise that a player has given all they can give and they're not going to get any better, so let them go. If you keep Eriksen here longer and longer, we might be here in a year and a half's time and he's about to leave because we give him a 1-year extension and he's been really crap and there's a negative feeling about it. For me, I think it is, if a player is good, let them go unless you see them being part of the long-term future. So I would probably let Eriksen go, and I think he would consider his future. I think he'd probably be open to staying another year at United, and the wages he's on is ridiculous. But I think it'd be the right decision to let Eriksen go. It was also said, by the way, by the Muppeteers that Eriksen and Casemiro could leave in January. Man United are also open to loans for Antony. And I think Man United would almost want to get a couple million for Eriksen if they could. So, which surprises me because I think he's having a good season and we're very limited on midfield depth. I don't think... But they said we could potentially take some money for Eriksen in January because that's the last chance to get money for him. But I just think with the midfield depth and with Eriksen being quite good, I'd be very surprised if they do look to sell him in January. I think if a good offer came in for Casemiro, they'd probably look to sell him in January and then replace him. But because I know that Ineos have been looking at midfielders to bring in January, but I guess it just depends on the market and the options there. Can you replace them? The question is, okay, let's say we get 5 million for Eriksen and 30 million for Casemiro in January. That's 35 million and all the money we save in wages. But can we replace them in January? Is there someone that's like available that you're like, boom? 2 Januaries ago, we could have got Ryan Gravenberch. We didn't act on it. He's now one of Liverpool's best players. There could be a Ryan Gravenberch type player out there on the market, maybe available in January for a reasonable price. But that's also the other question when it comes to January sales. Can we afford them? But I would let Eriksen go at the end of the season, but I hope he continues his good form as well. Signed Eriksen for free, let him go for free at the end of the season. I agree, 100% agree. Continuing on, one player that we did not sign for free, we spent 85 million on, is Antony. And we've been speaking about this a lot lately, but basically the green light has been given for Antony to leave United. It looks like he could go in January. He's only started one of the 11 games we've had this season and got 27 minutes off the bench. It was said that some Premier League clubs have made inquiries about Antony's availability. United are prepared to let him go on loan and want him to stay in Europe to try and recoup some of the investment. Manchester United are open to let Antony go out on loan in January to help secure a permanent move next summer. Manchester United would listen to offers of around 40 million for Antony. That was said by Chris Wheeler. Some Premier League clubs have made inquiries about Antony's availability and United ready to let him go. We obviously had the report yesterday from Graham Bailey that United have actually given the green light for Antony to leave in January, whether it be on loan or permanent, which basically says they want Antony gone. And yeah, there's also news that Antony could go out on loan in January, but Man United want 40 million. We're not going to get 40 million. If Antony goes out on loan, has a Lingard-esque January loan like Lingard did at West Ham, maybe you could get the price raised for him. Maybe. But I don't think we're getting anywhere near 40 million as well. Thank you very much, Gaz. Been a member for 4 months. Big up, Gaz. Gaz has been in the chat for like 3 years, guys. So big up, Gaz. Proper OG on the channel. Big up, Diego as well. Another OG on the channel. Big up everybody in the chat as well. The talk should be about the game tonight and the next 3 games. Win all 4, any chance? Oh, that's a good question. So, game tonight, I think going to Turkey away because of the atmosphere is always a really difficult game. But I don't think Fenerbahce have been at the best, and I think we need a win. I think had we beaten FC 20 and beaten Porto, we could come in today with the mindset of a draw's not bad. Because I do think Fenerbahce away, it's a difficult game. But I think we've got to win tonight. We've got Fenerbahce tonight. we've got West Ham on Sunday. Now, West Ham just got battered by Tottenham. Let me actually share my screen. I want to get into the Mason Mount news, by the way. I'm going to do that in a second. But let me share my screen here. Here's what we got. We've got Fenerbahce. And then tomorrow we've got West Ham. Not tomorrow. Sunday we've got West Ham. And then we've got Leicester in the Cup. Then we've got Chelsea. Fenerbahce win. West Ham win. Leicester win. We can win the next 3 games. I also think we can beat PAOK. And I also think we can beat Leicester in the league. The big question is Sunday the 3rd of November, Chelsea. Because if you actually look at our fixtures, okay, and this is me being obviously very positive because we've looked at easy fixtures in the past and we haven't won any of them. But I look at this and I say we should beat Fenerbahce, we should beat West Ham, we should beat Leicester. I think Chelsea, we do have a good record against them. I don't think we'll beat them, but I think we could get a draw. POOK we should beat, Leicester we should beat, Ipswich we should beat, Bodo/Glimt we should beat, Everton we should beat. If you actually think about it, we have quite an easy run, bar Chelsea. We've got Everton, Ipswich, Leicester, and West Ham in the Premier League, and Chelsea. And then we got Arsenal in December. Gets a bit more difficult in December. We've got Arsenal, Forest, who've taken points off Chelsea and Liverpool, and we've got City. After that run, we've got Arsenal, we've got Forest, we've got City. Bournemouth, Wolves, we should beat. Newcastle haven't been at their best. Liverpool will cause us issues. So there's definitely potential to get a run of games. I'd be very disappointed if we don't get 3 points versus West Ham. Considering, why is the camera like? Considering how, the other teams have done against West Ham, I'd be very disappointed if we didn't get the 3 points. I think they've got a good team, West Ham, but I think they're set up really, really badly. So let's talk a little bit about Mason Mount. Chelsea is at Old Trafford. It's a must-win game if you want to chase top 4. 100%. We beat Villa. We beat Villa last season twice, and we outplayed Chelsea, I think, in that game at Old Trafford last season. We can beat our top 4 contenders. We can. We've proven that. So, yeah. Stream quality is okay. Keep going. I just feel like my camera's freezing up a bit. Someone said, Alice, you're the best. I enjoy watching. I appreciate that. So what's been said on Mason Mount? There's 2 stories on Mason Mount. This is an older one, but it got rehashed on OneFootball. It was said there were conflicting reports about Mason Mount's future at Manchester United after a challenging debut season marked by injuries which look to be continuing into this season, while some sources suggest Ineos have reportedly discussed offloading certain players, including Mount and Antony. So reports coming out that Mason Mount is one that could be sold because of his injury issues, which are continuing into this year. It's been discussed about the sale of Mount and Antony. Sources within Ineos have indicated that the group is open to selling several Manchester United players in the upcoming January window. Antony, Casemiro and Christian Eriksen are among those who could be made available for transfer, just like the Muppeteers said and we covered earlier. However, no centre-backs are expected to be sold this summer, which is what the Muppeteers have said because they feel that we're short on centre-backs, despite Lindelof's contract set to expire. Mason Mount's future is also under scrutiny. If the former Chelsea midfielder fails to make an impact this season, Ineos may consider selling him as well. This approach echoes the strategy of Berardo, who implemented a rule at Manchester City where players were given 2 full seasons to prove themselves before being moved on, a policy that may be applied. So for me, I think Ineos, and this is not surprising, I think if Mason Mount continues this season the way he started of getting injured and after his head was touched and now he's out for 6 weeks, he comes on, he concusses his head, we think he's out for 1 game, he's out for 6 weeks, he plays 2 games out for 6 weeks, Ineos will move him on. Ineos' strategy is you've got 2 seasons to perform and you're out. Now, I think that's a really good strategy to have. It's what Manchester City had. I think sometimes the first season for a player is an adaptation season, and then their second season they can hit new levels. You look at Ryan Gravenberch. He was okay at Liverpool last season, but a lot of Liverpool fans weren't happy with the signing of Ryan Gravenberch last season. But that was his adjustment season. Obviously, a new manager coming in helped him. And look at Ryan Gravenberch this season. He's been profiled correctly by the manager. He's having a phenomenal season. I think it's a really good policy to have because I think us as a fan base, we have this issue of we write players off after 1 or 2 months. I mean, I see so many people writing Joshua Zirkzee off already. I think Joshua Zirkzee could be a phenomenal signing for United. I think he's being misprofiled. I think Joshua Zirkzee could be our Gravenberch. We could get a new manager in the summer and he could use Joshua Zirkzee a completely different way. And Joshua Zirkzee could be like the Gravenberch of next season where he doesn't have the best first season, but the second season he's being used to his strengths and technical abilities under a new manager and it could go off. I think to have 2 full seasons and then you're out is really good because sometimes players need time to adjust adjust. I think we do write certain players off after a couple of months, a couple of games. We are a little bit reactionary as a fan base. So I think that's fair. And I think right now I look at Mason Mount and I say I want it to work. I think if he stayed fit, I think he could be a good player for us. And I think his pressing and what he does to the system could really work. But ultimately, I think it's probably right to sell Mason Mount in the summer. If Mason Mount cannot get an extended period of fitness, and in that extended period of fitness, show us why he needs to be in our best starting 11. Mason Mount, for me, has got to have an extended period of fitness where he's in the starting 11 and he deserves to be in the starting 11 and we're getting results and he's a key part of that. If not, I would sell Mason Mount in the summer. And I don't like to say that because I generally think Mason Mount's a really good player. I know people are like, sell Mason Mount, Chelsea robbed us. I don't think we should have sold Mason Mount last summer, and I said that. Last summer I said we should have gone for Caicedo, we shouldn't have gone for Mount, we needed someone that could play a bit deeper. We went for Mount, I backed that decision, I said, you know what, we've signed Mount now. I didn't think we needed to sign him, but I'm going to back him because I know he's a good player. Chelsea player of the season twice in a row. But he's just been disappointing. He's been really disappointing because I don't think he's a bad player, but it's his fitness. And I know that isn't his fault, but for me, yeah, I would sell Mason Mount in the summer. Unless he can establish himself as a regular and put in some really good performances, I would sell him in the summer. Pressure is mounting. I mean, you're absolutely right. We ran into the same issue with Casemiro being up for sale and actually selling them as two different things, and that's true. Will we be able to sell Mason Mount? I think because he's English and he was a really good player, I think potentially we could, but at the same time, we've given Mason Mount very, very high wages. I think he's on 250 grand a week. He's one of our highest earners, so it could be another Casemiro type thing. I will say this, considering he had 1 year left on his contract at Chelsea, 40 million should have been the most we spent on him. 55 million, we got mugged off by Chelsea. Caicedo isn't worth 100 million, but Caicedo only cost 100 million because Chelsea spent so long faffing over the 75 million that Brighton wanted, that Liverpool gave in and put 100 million bid, which meant that Chelsea then had to match that and pay 100 million if they wanted him. Chelsea were trying to play Brighton into basically selling him for under 70 million. Brighton said 75 million. If Chelsea had got Caicedo in June, he would have cost 75 million. I'm not saying 75 million pound player, but if you look at Mount for 55 million and Caicedo for 75 million, we probably could have just spent the extra 20 million on Caicedo, who's actually been really good for Chelsea despite the narrative that he's been a flop. If you watch him play, he's been really good because he can play deeper, because he's been on the ball. I will stick with that as well. But yeah, I think we overpaid for Mason Mount and I want it to work, but it's going to be a difficult sale. Horrific injuries, large wage packet. It's going to be difficult to sell him as well. Look, I'm going to be honest. There's question marks about how good of a player Antony actually is because he had a decent spell at Ajax, but Cody Gakpo was better than him in the Eredivisie. We just went for Antony. We know Mason Mount is a good player. He's a Champions League winner. He was Chelsea player of the season 2 times in a row. He was adored by most Chelsea fans. He was a good player for Chelsea. He really was. So we know there's a good player in Mount, but if he can't stay fit and he's not, there's no point having him. That's what I say. I don't think he's a bad player, and I think if he could somehow stay fit from now to the end of the season, I think he could maybe turn it around and actually be an important part of the team. But right now, I've lost all hope for Mason Mount because I think he'll come back for 2 games and get injured again. And when you're only playing 2 games 6 weeks, 2 games injured for 6 weeks, he can't build on that momentum. He can't build up fitness. So for me, I think it's probably the end of Mount as well. I mean, Chelsea fans wanted to keep Mount because he was good for Chelsea. Let's not deny that. Continuing on, I want to talk about the match tonight and 2 youngsters I'm excited to see. So it was said, 17-year-old left-back Harry Amas is included in the Manchester United travelling squad to face Fenerbahce, along with 18-year-old right-back Habib Ogunai. So we're bringing in some of the young fullbacks into the squad. Do I think they'll play? Maybe they'll come off the bench. I don't expect them to start. I expect them to maybe come off the bench. And I think that's quite exciting to potentially have these players coming off the bench. Young players that I rate, that are really good at academy level, but very thin on fullbacks. I'm glad that Ten Hag's done that. I was getting frustrated that we would literally have no fullback on the bench. Harry Amas wasn't on the bench any of the previous games. It was annoying me. I couldn't understand it. I said, look, I know he's a bit defensively sus and he's not quite physically good enough, but he's good on the ball. He's a left back. He fits your system and the way you want to play. If Harry Amas can bulk up and improve his defensive awareness, in 2 years' time, he's probably the perfect mould of left back that Ten Hag would want for a system. So I'm really glad that Harry Amas is in there. Ogunai is obviously a really, really good young player as well. Just seeing some top young players being in the squad today, hopefully getting some minutes, will be great to see as well. Mount has talent but been horrific. And but injuries have been horrific, and do wonder if he can handle the Man United pressure, and that is a big question as well. So sell Mount, but keep Shaw. I never said keep Shaw. I would sell Luke Shaw in the summer because he can't stay fit. I like Luke Shaw and I like Mason Mount, and if they can stay fit, I think they could be really good players for us and help us get back on track. But they can't stay fit, and I think we'll have to look at that and say, you've had 2 seasons where you've basically been together in not playing. You've got to go. Eriksen did say on Mason Mount that it takes a little longer, but I think he'll be back soon. Before he had a concussion, apparently he picked up another injury. He played literally 40 minutes and picked up another injury. I don't know what is wrong with Mason Mount. I really just want him to stay fit. I really do. Guys, please do hit the like button. Of course, subscribe down below if you're new and share the video. There was a few more stories coming out as well that Manchester United are interested in signing Alphonso Davies and Leroy Sané, who are out of contract in the summer. They're not interested in Goretzka. I don't think we've got any chance of getting Alphonso Davies. I think he's Real Madrid bound, but I'd absolutely take him. Leon Goretzka, I do not want, so I'm glad we're not interested in him. And Leroy Sané, out of contract in the summer, I would go for him. I know it's a bigger name player on bigger wages and it's a bit more risky. It could be Sanchez 2.0, but I would definitely go for Leroy Sané. And then lastly, according to El Nacional, Napoli are among the clubs interested in signing Rashford. There's a lot of interest in Rashford, but I don't think Ineos will sell Rashford. I think he's going to have a good season. I think he's on track to have a good season. And I think Marcus Rashford, in my opinion, has looked quite good when he's played this season. So I can't actually see Marcus Rashford being sold, but you never know. Now, before I end the live stream, I want to talk about the starting 11 for tonight's game ahead of Fenerbahce as well. Did the Amas emergence let Alvaro go? Potentially they took that. With Sedan Iqbal going, that's because they viewed Maino as a higher talent. So with Alvaro going, maybe they view Amas as a higher talent. But I think it was more that they wanted to just get a bit of money. So how do I think Man United will play? I think, and hear me out, I think we're going to do a 4-4-2. This is just my prediction. I think we might, and I would like to see this. I think we could see this, and this is what I'd like to see. Because I felt that the last game, Bruno was almost playing as a striker, so maybe we sub Bruno out with Xerxes. If I'm going to be honest, I think it could be something like this. I think if it was a 4-4-2, you probably want Garnacho because it's a bit more defensive. But I think Eric Tenal talks about rotation, so I think maybe he rotates Garnacho out. And I would say rotate Casemiro, because I think we need Agate I think we need Eriksen for his quality on the ball, but I think Agate off the ball. And then I would go with, I would like to say Amas, but I think if Rashford's not going to track back, I'd probably go something like this. I'd rather Mazraoui, if Mazraoui can play, because he's been taken, so I think he's going to play. This is what I would do, in my opinion. And this is what I think Tenal could do. Well, I feel like he might go with Casemiro over Agate, because I know there is a knock on Agate, to be fair. But I don't think he really likes Agate. I think we could see this. This is what I'd probably do. And I think we could maybe see this. I thought Rashford was really good in the last European game. Obviously, Bruno is out. So there's no Bruno because of the red card. I think we could see that. And I would like to see almost it, because it would sort of probably be a little bit like this. Rashford gets forward a bit more. I think I'd like to probably see that. I don't know if we will see that, but that's what I'd personally like to see. The other thing he could do is this, but I don't think it makes sense. If you've got no midfielders on the bench, he could do this, and he could shut down shop and go a bit more defensive and have Eriksen doing Bruno's role. But then if something happens to Agate, then Eriksen's got to go deep, and then we then sub Xerxes on, I guess. But I feel like you'd lose all 3 midfielders he's taken in the lineup. So, I would personally sacrifice Casemiro for Xerxes. I think we need Eriksen because he's on the ball abilities, and I think that Xerxes, because I think we need to see sort Højlund and Xerxes together. I think Højlund and Xerxes together is what I want to see, because I think it could work really, really well. Just seeing your thoughts as well. Do you think Eriksen will play the Bruno role? I think he might. I'd like to see Xerxes there, because Bruno, it was more of a 4-4-2 last game, with Bruno playing more as a number 9 than a number 10. So I would rather see Xerxes there as well. I do think Højlund's better than Xerxes, but I also think because they're such different profile of players, it's really hard to compare them. And we're not using Xerxes to his best strengths. But I'd like to see them play together. if I was going to be honest as well. Lindelof backup centre-back worries me. Yeah, Lindelof is the only centre-back we've got to back up. Evans and Maguire are out. As I can see this game being close. Yeah, I think it will be close. I think Jose Mourinho, he knows what to do in these kind of games, these big games. I think it will be close, definitely. Could see Martinez in the middle, in midfield, by the middle, or three at the back middle. I don't know. But anyway, people, please do go ahead and hit that like button. Of course, subscribe down below if you're new. I'm going to wrap up the live show here, as I like to keep them to half an hour. I like to keep my live shows between 30 minutes to 45 minutes, depending on the news and depending if it's morning or evening. But the morning was like to keep to half an hour, just because I feel like that's, if anyone's watching it on catch up, it doesn't drag on too much, it doesn't come too repetitive. But please do hit the like button. Subscribe down below if you're new. I'll be back tonight for a United versus Fenerbahce watch along, and I'll have a match reaction tonight. So see you then. Bye.